Well, hello again and welcome back to my channel. Now, you probably haven't noticed, but things have been a little bit quiet around here. My last video was the lovely blue and walnut resin table for a friend of mine, but I did reference in that video that I was going for surgery. Now, I've been in the program for just over 2 years for the spinal cord implant or the spinal cord stimulator, and I actually had the trial surgery, it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. Now the implant has been removed. It was only for a trial period to see if there was any potential benefits for me in terms of a reduction of the chronic pain in my shoulder, and I'm kind of pleased to report really there was some real positive outcomes for it. So all the information has gone back to the consultants now, and I'll be catching up hopefully with them in the next sort of weeks and months with a view to hopefully looking at the implant becoming a full and permanent part of me. So more news to follow on that in the future. So I've been kind of on enforced light duties really since the surgery, kind of just getting myself back into here now, just doing a few bits and pieces, more kind of design ideas really than big making projects, because I've just got to be careful and mindful of the fact I've just had, you know, a little bit of invasive surgery really, so I need to have that kind of thought in the back of my head. So today's video, I've actually been wanting to do one of these for quite a while, is a bit of a catch-up video on previous projects. Now, some of my videos do better than others, you know, that's the nature of YouTube, I suppose, and the same questions always pop up, and then people do come back and ask, it's been a year now, it's been 2 years now, how is it holding up? So I've got a list of previous videos, previous projects that I'm going to revisit and talk a little bit more about them, starting with the painted OSB ball at the back. Now, at the end of last year, I made the decision to paint one of the workshop OSB walls white, partly to do with it might help a little bit with filming, also to brighten it up a little bit in here. I actually really like the OSB walls, but there was a danger of being overkill or saturation, having all 4 walls just bare OSB. So this became the trial wall. Now, my videos kind of, it did okay, you know, like I would normally do 1,000 to 2,000 views. And then for some reason, a few months ago, it just kind of took off. Something to do with something that happened in the US. There must have been some program on or something, because most of the viewing figures were coming from the USA to my friends over the pond. Now, I am pleased to report that the method I used has held up really well. There has been no bleed through of the resin coming through, so there's been no yellowing of the wall. I think the importance of a good primer, it was expensive, but I used the Zinza Bin Bullseye 123, which is a water-based primer, and then I hit it over the top with some Santex Smooth masonry paint, and that has worked really well. I could have done a better job in the sense I could have filled over the screw holes and the joins, but actually I wanted to keep them bare, because if there was ever the need to take these off and replace them for whatever reason, then I'd know where the holes were and I wouldn't make a big mess of it in the future. So yeah, this one, it's been lots of questions, follow-up questions, how's it still been? So I do reply and answer to them, but it's held up really well, and if you were considering painting OSB, I'd certainly recommend doing this method. Around 18 months ago, I built a garden fence between ourselves and our neighbours, mainly for privacy really, to bring it up to around about 5 foot. Well, I say I built a garden fence, what I actually did was just attach a load of featherboards to the existing fence just to raise it up on the height wise. Now, the boards themselves were very wet, it was done in the winter time, so I increased the kind of overlap, and that has held up really well. And I'm pleased to report, as you can see, that the fence has been fantastic since then. Now, we've had 4 or 5 really bad storms here in the northwest of England, 2 of them well over 90 miles an hour, and I've not had to replace any of the featherboards at all. One piece of advice of what had been given, and it is a tomorrow job, it will happen at some point, is to put a capping piece along the top. I haven't actually treated that yet, so that is still the exposed treated wood. I will be painting it at some point, or spraying it with oil or something oil in it, and I'll do it both sides. So thanks for the feedback on that. If you follow the method I used just with the combination square, I used a brad nail gun and then fixed it in with screws. It worked really well if you're thinking of doing that. I can't help you on the actual foundations for building the fence because that was already there, but 18 months on, still standing, still looking good. Okay, a revisit to the cladding both on the shed and on the workshop. Now the shed was assembled 2 years ago when I think we first went into the COVID lockdown, and the workshop cladding went on this time last year. Now there was the debate of on the shed you've used two fixings, that's going to split the featherboards, and then when I've done the cladding on the workshop you've only used one fixing, that won't hold. So there is a world of debate around how many screws, nails, fixings or whatever to use when cladding your shed, workshop, garage, whatever. Now I am pleased to report on the two fixings, the two screws on the featherboards on the shed, they have held up fine. I have not had any boards split at all. I'm not making this up, I'm showing you now as you're looking at it. And on the workshop I used the one fixing method, the screw. Now the workshop was not tongue and groove, shiplap cladding, so maybe that made things a little bit better, but the workshop cladding has been fine. There's been no issues with splitting or expansion or problems with it. Look around, it looks great. And the two fixing method on the shed has also worked fine. So I think it's one of those woodworking things that everybody has an opinion and they are always right. Both methods seem to work okay. If you want to discuss that in the comment section, then please feel free. But just to point out, both methods for what I've used have worked spot on. Last year as well was my first attempt at guttering on the workshop for the insulated roof panels, and I'm pleased to say again that's held up really well. It's not a daunting task, it's actually more a bit of a click, like a Lego exercise really, and just to make sure that you've got your guttering on just a little bit of an incline, bit of an angle, so it's coming down towards the water. But one thing I would say, my workshop is 24 foot, so it's about 7 point something meters. And the water butt I got, and I got one of the larger ones, filled up really quickly. So I would recommend, if you've got kind of like a larger space that you're guttering, to probably get two of the water butts, and then you can use it for your, you know, for watering your lawn or something like that. So also the actual mesh that I put over the guttering as kind of a post install, and it was only a few quid with some cable ties. That was really worth the hassle, if you like, because I've never had to go in and dig any leaves out of the guttering, despite the fact I've also got two trees hanging over the workshop. So I'd certainly recommend doing that as opposed to the expensive hedgehog guttering systems or whatever you can get. Just literally spend 4 or 5 quid getting some of that mesh, some cable ties, tie it over, and it worked really well. So yeah, any questions if you want to ask about the guttering, again in the comments or the social media, get in touch with me and I can maybe give you a little bit more specific answers if you have any specific questions. And time for a little update on my table saw dilemma. Now earlier on in the year I posted a video with looking at a potential change from my Evolution Rage 5S table saw. Now not much has happened since then, apart from the fact that the table saw itself has been retired to the garage. There's a couple of reasons behind it, and partly being that I've actually feel like I've lost my confidence with it, and I can't even actually describe, there was no one specific event, but I just don't feel as confident with it as maybe I once did, and I don't have much of a need for it anyway. Now I had loads of great suggestions in the comment section for that video, and I'm still very open to potential successors or changes. People suggesting the Festool because it's got the saw stop technology. Now to my friends over at the pond, we don't have saw stop saws here, and I'm not really after a big cabinet saw for in here because I like the flexibility of the space because everything's on casters. My current train of thought for the future is actually an upgraded or a more professional, shall we say, bandsaw. The main purpose I was using a table saw was for long rip cuts of quite dense hardwoods that I can get my hands on, and obviously a table saw gives it a cleaner finish, shall we say, but with me having the Axminster Trade, the spiral cutter planer thicknesser, that's not really much of a concern for me because I can just run it through there. So my possible train of thought is to get a better larger scale bandsaw. I'm going to keep the Ferex one because that's coming really handy for smaller projects and stuff, as opposed to actually upgrading to a table saw. But that's not to say I might not change my mind tomorrow or in the near future, but it's something probably for later on in the year, possibly into next year, because I'm not really missing having a table saw in here at the moment. My workbench with the MFT setup, a track saw seems to be fulfilling most of that. The little Ferrex bandsaw is actually doing quite well. It struggles a little bit with the really dense stuff, but it's actually holding up pretty well with that. So put it on hold for now, but it's something I will definitely be revisiting at some point in the future. Okay, quick update on what has certainly been my most successful video of the last 12 months, and that was the installation of the insulated roof panels in the workshop. Now, I think there's quite a few reasons for this. One of them certainly being the increase in the cost of timber prices, so the construction of a traditional timber roof became just as expensive, if not more, than installing the insulated roof panels, and also the hassle of building a cold roof, warm roof, hybrid roof, whatever you want to call them, as opposed to these things that went on in a day with three of us. My brother came down, Pam's dad came down, Dave, and we got, I think it was 7 of the 8 panels on in one day, and the only reason the last one didn't go on because I had to cut it lengthways, which was done a few days later. I have absolutely no regrets with installing these. They have been fantastic for me. The video's been very popular, but people only watch about 4 minutes of it. I don't think they like my long monologue at the beginning about the different monopitch, all the flashings and stuff, but it's that kind of stuff you need to know, and that's why I went into those details. People really just skip to watching us how we put them on. Very straightforward to put on. Had no issues with them since. There's been no leaks, there's been no condensation in here. I've had that asked quite a few times. A couple of things I forgot to do but didn't impact on it was these actual foam inserts that are meant to go on the front at the top, so if there's a really heavy downpour, the water doesn't move up the roof panels and then go down the front of the building. I do need to, again, it's a tomorrow job, I do need to put them on at some point, but I've had no issues with it. It might be because the pitch of my roof is 6 degrees, so the likelihood of water going upwards, even though we've had some torrential downpours over the winter this time, it didn't happen, you know, so I will get them in at some point because they're meant to be there. I just forgot to do it, and thank you for those who pointed out in the video. But I hope the video has been some help to you. I would certainly recommend doing this method. It's a lot less hassle, it's a time saving, and it's probably cheaper now than the equivalent of doing OSB, EPDM, timber structure. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you do your homework and you'll find that out. But yeah, been brilliant, and would certainly recommend them to anyone who's thinking of doing it. Now, not so much a project update, but one of my quite successful videos over the last year was been my review of my Huepar laser level. Now, this was not gifted to me. I bought this with my own money, but I do have an affiliated link to any Huepar product, and I'll leave a link for that in the description. But Huepar very kindly sent me one of the bells and whistles lasers with the tripod, which is at the back there somewhere, and a few other bits and pieces for me to review. Now, I'm not going to do a review of this one like I've done of my previous one, because Lewis at LTW Carpentry does some great reviews on these Huepar lasers, so go and check his stuff out, and I'll leave a link in the description for that. But what I think I might do is I might take this one and do a comparison video against this one for someone who's maybe starting out in the world of laser levels, and is it worth going for the whole bells and whistles thing, or you're actually just going to be all right with one of the more entry-level professional lasers. So if that's something you might be interested in, again, let me know. It'll be something for a bit more future content when things are a little bit better for me. But yeah, let me know what you think about that, and if you think that's a good idea, then that's certainly a video I'll consider doing in the future. Now, I'm currently sat on a raised deck area, which was a series of 2 videos for what was a hot tub stand for us. Now, unfortunately, the hot tub has had to be decommissioned due to the energy costs in this country going absolutely crazy. But the decking area itself worked out really well, and this video has become quite popular again over the last 3 or 4 months. Can't quite explain why, but it's kind of taken off a little bit. Using these stratarized adjustable support pedestals were really good, and my workshop is actually based on them as well. I definitely recommend them, and they do a variety of ones. They do kind of some auto angle correcting ones, which I think would be really good, and different height adjustable ones as well. The decked area is held up great. Actually putting the damp-proof membrane, damp-proof course between the decking, Kerowin decking boards and the frame has worked really well and helped to keep the actual frame really dry. So I would recommend that. In the video I described it as complete genius or total madness, but it's worked out really well. The Kerowin boards are good. I treated them with some decking oil, but I'm probably going to go back at it with something a little bit more substantial at some point because the colour's faded on them a little bit. But the decking area itself, it's lovely to sit on. I've got my Carpentry Woodcraft Builder Chair Challenge, which is really nice, and a couple of seats here, particularly in the evening when the sun comes round at this point. So yeah, all good on this one. And that's it for this one, folks. I think it's actually quite nice to revisit some previous videos and stuff, because it might answer some questions in follow-ups that people might have been thinking when they watched it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. Now, as I say, kind of build videos, project videos at the moment are pretty much on hold. I really do need to take good care of myself, and hopefully I'll have some more news down the line about the potential of the full permanent spinal cord implant. I'll keep you updated with that one, and I do post updates on social media and stuff, so if you want to check out the Instagram or the Facebook stuff, then there's links in the description for any of that. And also open to suggestions, you know, if you want to get in touch with me, if there's anything around my workshop that you'd like me to maybe consider doing some content on, which would be a little bit more of a talking heads thing or a review style stuff, then get in touch. And if I think I can make it work, then yeah, I'll definitely do that for you if it's any help to you guys out there. Because as ever, everyone, you know, take good care, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.